Hey, this is Dr. Drew, and you were listening to This Life
with Bob Forrest
and Dr. Drew.
Here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gather around for another episode of This Life. I'm telling you, it's been a good couple of episodes here.
Let me get a little business out of the way. Please, everybody, check out me and Lawrence Vaughn on KBC 790 Midday Live Talk Radio program. We have that up at drdrew.com. Also at kbc.com. Also join the email list at drdrew.com. Get the weekly opium series as well. We're going to do a narcissism series, explain why we are all so crazy in this country and why the tribalism. And,
so a little narcissism is good. I'm going to argue that all the time.
I told you. No.
You don't get Bob Dylan if you don't get narcissism.
Bob, no argument for me. That's one of the things I'm going to teach people is that it's not a pejorative. It has a liability.
Yes.
Okay. And the liability is what we're dealing with right now.
Is the recovery industry.
And we have a new product that we are getting behind called Genotex from the Genotox Lab. Genotox, rather.
It's the genetic, so you know that the urine is of the person.
Exactly. So you check the DNA from the cheek swab, and you make sure that pee has the DNA from the person.
That could put a lot of phony outpatients out of business.
And I like the way Bob wants to deal with it. Like, I've got my Genotox swab here. Is there anything you want to tell me?
When they go in the bathroom with a cup of urine.
Is there anything we need to talk about? And also our friends
Doesn't
at Heal.
feel warm enough. Are you sure this is yours?
Our friends at Heal, they, of course, will come to your house within 2 hours. Go to heal.com.
Do you know how many cold cups of urine I've been given? You can just feel it and go, dude, come on. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Do you think I was born yesterday?
The pH
What about the Whizzinator?
The Whizzinator.
Drew brought that up on a prior episode. We haven't even introduced you yet. You can't talk.
I'm sorry.
This is Amy, my friend Amy Dresner. She's a comedian. She was a comedian. Now she's an author of My Fair Junkie. Awesome. She's also one of the funnest people in Hollywood for the last 20 years.
Contributor to The Fix, thefix.com.
Well, let's not get into that.
No?
What? Yes,
Why?
6 years.
I know, but you write great articles. I have a problem with The Fix.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's owned by a rehab.
Oh. Not anymore. He sold it.
Oh, did he?
He sold the rehab.
Oh, okay. Oh, he sold the rehab.
Oh. Maybe I shouldn't be even. Oh, God. You always get me in trouble, Bob. You always make me
With
say.
her publisher, I'm going to get her in trouble.
Oh, God. There
so
goes that
anyways,
writing
just so you know, I put in a closed, what's it called when you have an envelope with a bid in it? That's what they did for The Fix. It's like a, it was
Closed
bankrupt.
bid.
So what do they do?
Auction?
Yeah, and you have to put in an envelope what you're willing to pay, and the other rehab paid more.
Well, that's interesting.
Anyways, it's insider.
So, Amy, your story.
She's an author. She's an author.
But the My Fair Fix, or My Fair Rehab, or My Fair Addiction story's got to be intense, I'm imagining.
Well, it was.
Let him get the book right. Where is it?
My Fair Junkie.
My Fair Junkie.
My Fair Junkie.
Well, what it is she and I have parallel universes. We've crossed paths through the years. She was
MacArthur Park back in the day?
No.
Not
Beverly Hills AA.
Not that bad.
Beverly Hills AA. And Rehab World.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so, and I've always felt like she's a kindred spirit. She's like me. She argues about everything. Wow. And now this last go round, how much are you sober now?
5.5 years.
5.5 years. So 5.5, 6 years ago, something broke in her, and now she talks the talk and pretty much more orthodox.
Oh, good.
Right?
What's the main
Wouldn't
drug?
you say that?
Stimulants?
How did you know?
Just guessing.
Keeps you thin. Keeps you thin.
Yeah.
Eating and sex, though, too.
No.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I had an eating disorder before I picked up drugs. Then I picked up meth. Did that for 2 years. Developed grand mal epilepsy, which I still have 15 years later. Yeah. Hyperactive lesions on my frontal lobe. Yeah. So, but that didn't keep me from shooting cocaine a couple of years later. But
that's not meth. That's what I
was
think,
like. It's
right
natural.
Yeah,
it's not made from gun blowing,
but
right?
It's an interesting move. How come you didn't smoke it?
Oh, which?
Shooting the coke.
Yeah.
Why'd you shoot the coke?
Because if you're going to go to Uruguay, would you take a rickshaw or rocket? Like, let's get to where we're going.
Well, were you shooting the meth?
No.
No.
I was never.
That's the interesting move.
Okay, because when you go to enough rehabs, it's almost like the learning annex for drug addicts, and then all of a sudden you relapse and you get, you party with someone who's like been a junkie for 20 years, and they're like, "Why are you snorting it? Why don't you shoot it? It uses less. It's much better." And then
from
by
Beverly
that point,
Hills to
by that
that.
point, you're like, "Well, why not?"
Right.
So
At least not heroin.
Yeah, so I was shooting coke, but I was having seizures, so I shot coke in a bike helmet. That is a true story.
You know what?
Bike helmet.
In a bike helmet.
In
Oh,
case
see,
you
would
had
that
a
was
seizure.
So I wouldn't crack my head open if
because
I
the
had a
cocaine's
seizure.
even more likely to cause seizure than the meth. Yeah, good.
It does cause seizures, but not as bad.
That's like an overdose. Like,
Well, cocaine induces seizures. Meth causes seizures.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So do you have seizures on the cocaine?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's why I wore a bike helmet so I didn't crack my head open.
I'm imagining it wasn't the initial move with the bike
She
helmet.
was
though.
a all the way gal. Can we be clear? All the way.
all the way in.
So
Right,
then,
yeah.
but then I had a couple seizures back to back, and I was just kind of like, I think I'm gonna die. I think I might actually end up.
Did that make you
paralyzed or
get
something.
sober?
Yeah, it did.
Oh my gosh.
Two
Well,
seizures back to back scared me.
That's Drew's
and-
favorite motivation to get sober.
What's the one-
real
But I didn't
comprehensive.
stay sober. I did not stay
It's all right,
sober.
but I
You stayed
know.
sober 8 years.
7
that-
years without AA.
7
correct.
years, yeah.
I know you don't like AA anymore.
So so when somebody says I believed I was going to die and they really believed it, then they're workable. Then they become somebody. who can
Yeah,
get-
I was really scared.
Yeah.
And I never could moderate my use, and I was never functional as a drug addict either. So the book opens with me being arrested for felony domestic violence. I was high on OxyContin. And
Oh,
I
we got
was-
some opiates in here too.
Yeah, so I got.
Tell me about that.
You got to go all the way, Drew.
I got something called frozen shoulder, which is something you get when you're like an inactive skinny Jew in your 40s, I guess.
Really?
And
Just freezes up.
yeah,
like a little
it's so
football
painful.
injury.
It's like capsulitis.
It's called tendonitis. Yeah,
Oh.
I've got it all the time.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I couldn't lift my arm, and I would just cry at night. And they gave me Norco, and that didn't do it. And then they gave me Oxy, and Oxy made me very aggressive, obviously. And so I pulled a knife on my now ex-husband while I was really high, and I went to jail. And that's the beginning of the book.
I understand that, but I've been a part of it from far before. So what I want to know is at what age did you go to your first 12-step meeting and or outpatient
24.
rehab? 24. And at what age did you get sober?
Which time?
Now, this time.
Which
This time.
43.
43.
So
It's the journey that I'm interested in. I
Yeah.
want people to know when their loved ones, mostly loved ones of addicts, listen to the show. And they're always hoping this week,
No.
and it's going to be magical, and they're going to be sober the rest of their life, and they're going to have a wedding, and it's going to be great, and they're going to Stanford, and everything's great. And I always try to tone that down. This is a journey for them, your daughter, your husband, your family member, not you. And it takes time, and I like them to hear these varying stories.
I've been in 6 rehabs. I mean, my experience was...
for alcoholics, it takes the average. This is John,
Okay, so Drew's got the data.
right,
Here's
let's
the
hear it.
real
Let's hear it.
hardcore data.
Yeah.
Wait till they get to the opiates part of this. It's going to be awful.
Well, no, this. I just have the alcoholic data. This is from John Kelly at Harvard, and it is 4 treatments, 5 years to get 1 year of sobriety. Ooh, that's average. Ooh, 4 treatments.
That's
5
going
years.
to meetings all the time and
Oh.
feeling guilty and ashamed that whole 5 years, lying to all your family members that you're sober, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Ooh.
Yeah, parents don't want to hear that. And that's only about alcohol, which is the most successful drug to recover from.
Right,
And
of
when you go
course.
to opiates, Drew, what do you think that number is?
I think Amy's pretty much got it.
6 to 10.
Yeah, then 10 years, and right?
But I didn't really like Oxy, and I titrated right off it. And that wasn't it. And then I started drinking Four Loko, and then I started going, it was like I went back to booze. I was too scared to shoot coke anymore. I was too scared to touch meth because I had epilepsy. And so I've sort of, touched them all. But it was like I would have 3 years
Didn't
sober.
somebody try to say do marijuana and then you won't have
I hate
seizures?
I tried CBD oil. I did try CBD oil, and it didn't work.
Somebody
it
did say it
not.
to
It did not work on me. But I would get like 3.5 years sober, and then I'd relapse. And it's not that I necessarily thought it would be different. I would be in so much pain. I didn't care.
Pain from what?
Emotional pain. I just life. I didn't know how
Psychic
to function.
pain.
I just didn't know how to function, and it was like I want to check out. I need to check out. And then finally, I I got arrested. I lost everything. I'm a Beverly Hills princess. And then all of a sudden I'm on Medi-Cal disability on a chain gang, sweeping trash. Yeah.
Nice.
It was,
go.
me and 40 Mexican guys. They're like, what you here for, Weta? I'm here for a DUI.
Weta, just so you know, is what I was called also. That means white.
You were weirdo. She was weirdo.
Weto.
And I was like, I'm here for
What you want,
domestic
Weto?
violence. And they were like, whoa. And I had an epiphany sweeping the streets.
Of
And I had a
Hollywood
huge
Boulevard,
shift.
by the way. This is the perfect Hollywood story, Drew.
Yeah.
She was working for the Hollywood Beautification Project on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah.
At 6, you had to be there at 7 in the
Seven-
morning?
7
a.m.
on the dot.
A princess from Beverly Hills has to be at Hollywood Boulevard with a broom sweeping Hollywood Boulevard.
That's what got through to you.
Yeah, I really. First of all, I got there and they were like, "You've swept before, right?" And I was like, "Well, I've swept privately. I mean, I've never swept publicly.
I've
I'm more
wept,
of
but
a
not swept."
private sweeper, like the Tina Turner song." They were so unamused by me.
They
And
didn't even know what she was talking. She was telling them she was doing stand-up bits for them, and they didn't even know what she was talking about.
When you did stand up, what kind of stuff was your routine?
It was all about my ex.
Yes,
and it
I
was
went
all
a couple
about
times.
drugs
It was
and being
she
a
is
terrible
really
wife.
funny, Drew. Really funny.
And everyone's
That's
like,
what
go
I
back
bet.
to stand up. But I just, now I can be funny and deliver a message. I want to get into speaking, and I am getting into speaking. And to me, I have something to say that I think is important and life-saving. And if you can make it funnier, all the better. People can hear it better.
Mm-hmm.
It's more digestible. They're open. It breaks down the stigma, all that kind of stuff. I don't want to just be funny for funny.
Yeah.
But you were funny. See, we did a podcast a couple of weeks ago.
God, we were
and-
so out of control.
And one of the things was I saw her do a thing at the Comedy Store just like on a weekday night. And Amy could shoot down hecklers within her bit. Like very few people can, especially
incorporated to the
yeah.
punchline.
It was like you were like a ninja, and I think that part of maybe is fear of doing it, or I don't know, or why would you be doing it if you were doing stand up out of an insecure place, which a lot of comedians do it from a very insecure
think?
place, wanting to be loved, wanting to be liked, wanting whatever. Oh yeah. It's Elvis's school calling. I'm sure there's some important LAUSD
Sunday.
thing going on. What? They call you every 2 hours, the schools. It's
Jeez.
ridiculous. So if you're doing it, if you've always done stand-up, because she's an excellent stand-up, and it came up that she wants to be more of a lecturer, integrate comedy into lecturing about addiction and stuff. And I saw it as kind of some unresolved thing about stand-up, because you're so good at it. I'm not bullshitting.
He wants
I'm
you
not
to go back to
bullshitting.
stand-up.
Obviously, he talked about it the whole time. And the other thing, he's like, "You're the most incredible sober stand-up female stand-up
No,
in the
she
world."
just knows
She's
how to shut guys
Okay.
up. That's
that
the
works
thing.
well for relationships. I stopped doing stand-up because my life fell apart. I had a nervous breakdown. I went into treatment. I tried to kill myself. I lost everything. And I was focused on getting sober and getting my life together than I was doing a tight 10-minute set at the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
And also getting newly sober. I didn't want to be around people drinking and smoking pot at 1 a.m. Then I was in sober living for 2.5 years. You can't be like, "Hey, can I break curfew? I need to go do, a set in the belly room, And it's like... And also, okay, here's another thing. Yes, nerves were part of it, but I was sober most of the time I did stand-up.
Right. You were sober the night I saw you.
Yeah. Stand-up is based on how broken you are. Poor me.
See,
Aren't I
this is the
pathetic?
thing. This
blah,
is very,
blah, blah.
You got to
I'm so
understand, he's obsessed with comedy.
I am.
Yes. All your friends are comedians. All your friends are
It's
comedians.
true, but it just has happened that way because Corolla. and
Well,
all
we're
that
smart.
stuff.
We're
Yeah,
smart.
They're
We're smart
I like
and
that.
self-effacing. But it's like, it was like all my thing was based on how crazy I was and what a terrible wife I was and what a bad drug addict I was. And I just thought, there's nothing funny about being happy and having your crap together. Nothing. So I just decided, I thought that I had labeled myself and I needed to break the identity I created. And I was like, I need to recast myself. And I want to recast myself as someone who's successful and got their shit together and isn't crazy. And so I
Right.
started working on that. And then I needed money. So I was freelancing and I was babysitting. And then the book came and it's just kind of taken off from there. And I mean, the book, it's great to have people go, "Oh my God, that was hilarious." But nothing beats getting a letter from someone saying, "You helped save my life. Your book gave me hope. I'm going into treatment tomorrow. thank you.
That's a big deal.
That's a huge deal. And I just cry. I still get those letters, and I cry and cry. To have taken 20 years of self-destructive crap and turned it into a tool that helps people,
Right.
oh my God.
Right.
Right.
And you caught my ear a little bit. 2.5 years in sober living. That's interesting.
Yeah, right?
That's what you hear.
Long time.
That's what you hear, though, people that are serious and going to do
I had
this.
nowhere to go either.
Did you ever run into Andy Dick?
I saw him at the store. I don't know him. He's a friend of mine. Do you mean run into him, or run into him
in a
like
sober-
naked?
No,
I mean,
in,
what
a
do you like?
sober, in a sober living house
No.
scenario.
What caught my
He's
ear
also been living in them off and on for years.
what caught my ear is for a different reason than Andy in sober living. But you were slipping and sliding, and then 2.5 years in sober living.
Yeah.
That's a very different approach to your recovery. Right?
And that's
than
what
it had
I
been for many
recognize.
years,
And that's what
yeah.
I recognize. And you know, life is balance, right? So somehow I think you're out over here being very conscious of what you just stated and kind of wanting to get away from the former you. And eventually what an authentic existence is the integration
Absolutely.
of both, right?
Right.
And you're in the process
I
of that.
completely agree with
Right?
that. And that might be from a stand-up stage.
It's
and
hard
not
to
from
be
a
funny
podium.
about good stuff. It really is.
But-
You know what I mean?
But you have to be open to the possibility.
It was a problem for Richard Pryor.
Well,
Richard Pryor got sober, and it was
What, then he sucked?
He didn't even try. You know what I mean?
I was sober most of the time I was doing stand-up. I spoke at She Recovers. Right? 500 women, Beverly Hills. I got a standing ovation. It was funny. People were crying. You can do it. You can have a message and be funny. What recovery advocates are funny? That's the way to reach young kids.
Yeah.
They want to know that you can be that you haven't lost your sense of humor and that you can still have fun being sober. And I think that for me at least, I need to break the shame. I've got to have humor about it.
And just to keep going on the path that Bob has set forth here, why not do both? Stand up and speaking.
Well, it's hard though. I understand what she's going through. When she brought it up, and then I thought about it
Because there's
days
no money in
afterwards.
stand-up.
When I go to my favorite comedians,
Yeah.
Louis, Dave Chappelle, Chris, you know,
Bert Kreischer.
Ooh,
right?
Bert too?
Right?
Bert's a friend.
So
Tom Segura?
the guy that died, that I found after he died, we had his wife on the podcast.
Oh,
that guy's
Ralphie.
funny as
Ralphie
hell.
May.
Ralphie May.
That
Bob.
guy is funny as hell.
Bob. He was
But it's
really
all very tragic.
Oh, yeah.
And it's all so.
and
Is there a
I-
Schadenfreude part of the audience who loves comedy? They like being around these losers like Louis and this. You know what I mean? Like, is there a Schadenfreude part of the audience of comedy?
Yes, but I think that people that are really good comedians orchestrate the audience. They're playing the audience. And Ralphie May is what I'm thinking of. I've seen Ralphie May have people crying, like nearly vomiting, but in waves through the audience. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I was way on the side of a huge audience of 4,000 people, and I watched it just go like literally waves through it. And he
But
was
a
just,
lot of it's self-depreciating.
Like I talked about,
I know.
it's all like, look how fucked
But
up
why
I
do
am.
people
and like,
want to go see a guy who's obviously in pain talk about that pain
because
in
people
a
like to
funny
feel
way?
because first of all, people like to feel better. People like to feel better than you, and people like to laugh, and they like
Yes.
people like to feel superior. That's it. You know,
It's you got. Let's break down laughter a little bit for a minute here. They're up on stage, and I'll use Amy as an example. And
I loved how she shut this dude down in 2
I don't
seconds.
even remember this.
Right. Yeah.
she's
Are
just
you
doing her
sure?
job.
Yes.
She's just doing her job up there, and she is evoking from the audience this spontaneous, subconscious, visceral, uncontrollable discharge. Right? It's not like
It's coming from them, not her.
It's not like she's up there. They're up there going, E equals MC squared. She's made a good point there. No, it's like she is evoking in us collectively and individually these involuntary discharges, right? Which is a pretty
Well, a
powerful
lot of what
thing.
she touched on and why it was, I also described watching her being uncomfortable. It was about how women view their husbands, and all husbands worry what their wives are really thinking, and she's going to talk about it for 10 fucking minutes and make everybody feel uncomfortable.
Right, and
Right?
But then discharge, have our laughter discharge, and so
Look at you knew what you were doing.
Shut up.
Well,
you
it's
knew what you were
interesting.
doing.
You're like, you were always very manipulative. I'm like, how dare you?
But right.
I mean, I just.
Well, I had about 10 thoughts at once there. So.
Okay,
Yeah,
go,
I mean-
go.
Well, one was
What is that insecurity that men feel when women are
castration anxiety.
Okay.
That's what it is.
But that's why that marriage. That's part of the reason
That's
that
what that
marriage
is.
is over. I
Yeah.
don't think that was cool of me to actually make fun of my
Yeah.
husband on stage. I think that was
Right.
disrespectful.
But,
looking
but,
back.
but by building the tension of your castration anxiety and then discharging it with laughter, it makes it all okay. And collectively, you're the group, you're the audience, you're setting her up there and giving her the power to do that. Collectively, in a way, we're sort of sacrificing them. They're sort of human sacrifices.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? See?
Totally.
But she's playing into that human sacrifice and using it in a way that builds the tension and then releases it, so you don't want to do the sacrifice anymore.
And does that make for
But
more intimacy? Does it make us understand the human condition better?
Yes. And what do we say she did when it went well?
Killed it.
She killed. So there you go. Isn't it weird when you really
she
think
tried
about
to kill him, by the way.
Well, she's going to cut his
I
nut,
brandished a knife. It was very Hamlet. I didn't ever try to. It didn't even
but
touch
the
him.
nuts
Let's
were going
back
to
it
go.
up.
She was going to cut his nuts off. Really, right? That's really what that is.
Right.
And that's the tension. What is she thinking of me is sort of how it consciously plays out. Is like, does she think I'm okay? Is she good enough? I'm big enough? Blah, 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 blah. You're right. But that's all sort of weirdly funnels into
How come
castration
when I
anxiety.
said you like comedians, all of your friends are comedians, you go to comedy all the time. The only times we've gone out socially as couples were to comedy clubs. And then I bring up comedy, he goes, why would you think that?
Wait, well, let me just say. Let me just say.
Funny.
Wait, you invited us to the comedy club.
Love
And we
But
thought-
you love comedy.
I love going. I sure do. We go rarely, though. We almost never go, right?
Christina P is playing tonight. Want to go?
Yes.
She's great. She's great. I love her.
She's at the Comedy Store in
Tom
LA.
and
If
Christina,
anybody's
I
here.
will go see anytime.
All right, go. Okay, so there we have it.
It's also, it's hard to talk about drugs and being sober to a crowd that's drinking, that's got a 2-drink minimum and drinking because they don't want to hear about it. And it's
I'm
a
trying to
little bit-
think of who are the people that have gotten sober, stand-ups that have gotten sober that were funny. There
I
aren't
don't know
any.
why. Just read my book and quiet and just tell
Okay.
I'm into the writing now.
I understand that.
It's like that's where I can have a message. That's where I don't have. There's not the pressure to be funny all the time. You can be funny when there's places, but you can also be honest and authentic and vulnerable. And I think that that's important. That's the other thing. As a comic, it was. You use comedy to deflect from real emotion and vulnerability all the time. It becomes your armor. I was doing it in meetings. I was doing sets in meetings. That's how I learned. That's how I started being a comic because I was so crazy when I was newly sober shooting coke. I'd start talking. I was so out of my mind, and I was so honest that people were just falling off their chairs laughing. And a couple professional comics came up to me and they just said, "Have you thought about doing stand-up? You're hilarious."
Wow.
Were you manic at the time?
No, I'm not bipolar.
She's just
incredibly.
No, I mean from the
yeah.
cocaine. I was wondering.
No. I just and they were just, and I was like, okay. So I started doing stand up, and I did it for about 5.5 years, and I toured, and it was great, and I got it out of my system, and I don't miss it.
But to be fair, aren't there a lot of girls that you went to high school with that are kind of like you? They're just no bullshit.
No.
There's a lot that are acid tongued, no bullshit.
They're not my friends anymore. Believe me. I was the goody
You went to
two-shoe.
Westlake? Where did you go? Where did you go to
I went
school?
to school in Westlake, but I wasn't friends with those cool girls. I was like a
Harvard,
goody two-shoes.
Westlake, Drew.
You went to Westlake when it was separate from Harvard.
Yes. Yeah, but it's like I was like a goody two shoes. I didn't drink till I was 19. So my friends were all like goody two shoes, and I was like I didn't smoke or drink or kiss anyone till I was like 18. You know what I mean? Nothing. So
Were you in Catholic school? What are you
Saving it
talking
up.
about?
well, that was before that. And putting a Jew in Catholic school was interesting.
A Jew in
You
Catholic
know.
school?
Yeah, that wasn't good.
Did you go to Catholic school?
No.
But, I was a goody two-shoes. So my crowd, they all got married and had kids and became lawyers, and I became a drug addict.
Okay. Well, there was another crowd there of your generation
That are
were-
gnarly. I know.
That
They're
are
a
gnarly,
party
that
crowd.
tell the fucking truth, shocking
I
truths.
wasn't friends with those girls.
You
Maybe
know
I need to be
who
friends with those
some
girls.
of them are
course.
married to some of my friends, right? And
Oh.
it's a whole West Side. It was almost like that empowerment movement that L7 kind of led. Like women are equal to men and they act like men and they fucking confront you and that type of thing.
Yeah.
And that was all around that West Side. It all started in Beverly
I wasn't
Hills.
friends with those girls then.
But you know that was going on.
Of course.
I could name names. They're all in AA now too.
Of course. I know.
What is it about drug addicts and alcoholics, Drew, that they're always pushing envelope somewhere on the horizon, whether it's gender.
My favorite thing
boundaries.
is when people that have deep experience in treating alcoholics and drug addicts go, "What is up with these people? What is up with drug addicts and alcoholics?" Farina did that to me once. I'm like, Jesus.
Oh
man,
yeah, he doesn't.
If you don't know, come on now. You and I don't know what's going on. So,
but you know what I'm talking about. Look at the history of addicts and alcoholism just in the last 50, 60, 70 years, how much of an impact it had on how we live, right? Rock and roll, comedy. Those are the two cultural things. Hip-hop music, right? Those are all drug-fueled kind of populations, right?
yeah.
It changes the normal people. It influences the normal people.
Well,
And then they condemn us. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Ask your question. What is the question?
I think it comes from that insecure place of wanting to prove yourself. That's the only way I know how it manifests. I've got something to say, and I'm going to say it, right?
Okay.
And that normal people don't really have that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Punk rock. The punk rock
Yes.
movement was fueled by methamphetamine,
Yes.
alcohol, and
Yes.
antisocial personality
Yes.
disorder.
Yes.
It changed the entire world's culture.
Yes.
It was only like 200 mentally ill people.
Right. So
And now the ones that didn't die are sober.
right. So there's a bigger question here that I've thought about, and that is that we went through. I think we're still reckoning with. I do a lot of thinking about this stuff, and I really think that the Civil War was a major trauma that we never got through before we hit the Second World War and the First World War. And this was a highly, highly trauma. We put it in the background, but we don't really realize how much trauma that really between Civil War and Jim Crow and then World War I and then World War II. I mean, think about how much generational trauma there was with all that. Just profound.
And now hardly any, and
then-
all we do is talk about it.
And then peace and prosperity.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
50s,
That's
60s,
what I'm talking
70s.
about.
Then the sexual revolution, and then everyone has money, and then the narcissistic turn. And around 1960, we decided that no longer were we going to listen to people that were smart and had their lives together. We're going to listen to the long-haired sociopath who's sure screaming at the top of his lungs. That's the guy.
Don't point at me. I wasn't a part of that. I was a part of later on.
I'm actually correct, and I'm thinking about you're right. I'm not
And
thinking
then
about
we
you.
were the ones that said, "Fuck the hippies, destroy everything."
Exactly. You took it further. That's exactly right. But it continued to be what young people, for some reason, suddenly elevated as the standard to which they measured themselves, which is I can't think of another period of history where that happened. Normally, people in history
Where young people are in charge of the culture,
not in charge,
or
where
the
they
thought.
elevated the sickest amongst them. That's whom they elevated. I remember my high school and stuff. We were putting people into positions of authority that were like the kids could barely function. We wanted them to lead us
Because they were cool.
They were cool.
Because
Right.
they were cool.
And so
they got drunk and
so
they could handle it.
there is something in what you're asking that's sort of bigger, historical. I haven't figured it out yet, but there's something in what you're thinking about. Think globally. Think more historically
But
about it.
I think of that kind of thing, and then I saw it in comedy in the 90s. I got sober in 96. I saw comedy as this new thing. Like, I had always loved Richard Pryor
Yep.
and George Carlin, whatever, but other than them, there was no comedy revolution going on. In the 90s, all of a sudden, it was like there was a comedy club in every town.
Right, it became a
and there's
thing.
comedy, and it became a thing, and
But
everybody
that was
became...
also an antisocial impulse, right? Don't you think?
Is it?
It's
Or is it...
like you're saying?
Yeah, but that's also, you're talking about when comedy was really great in the 80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
Like the 80s was when there wasn't any PC culture. And it was like, now you can't say anything without pissing
So you
someone
got
off.
And the
Kinnison.
whole
Who
point
do you
of it-
have in the 80s? Kinnison.
Yeah.
Pryor was still lurking around.
Pryor was
Yeah.
still.
But I mean,
but it was a new breed. Was Kinnison and who were the other ones?
that whole Chinese restaurant thing in Boston. You know what I'm talking about? Chop Choy or
Did
whatever.
you play there?
Yeah.
Did you play there, Amy?
No, but it was a whole different, it's like, now it's like there's so much you can't say, and everyone's really tight and and everything's racist and everything's.
Did you hear?
There's a feminism and like even with the recovery thing, I've gotten so much pushback for using the word junkie in my title.
All right, hold that thought. We're taking a break. Be right back. One of the most crucial components of addiction recovery is accountability. Part of what makes addiction so difficult is the inability to self-regulate. Now, this is especially problematic for those in outpatient recovery or pain management program. And while the facilities require regular urine tests to ensure compliance, frequently the actual tests are not even observed. And this led to an epidemic of falsified samples where patients either use someone else's urine or widely available synthetic urine. The result is a lot of addicts carry right on using undetected, and they get none of the benefits from treatment. The only objective test we have for addiction is the urine screen. Now, recently, I learned about a new solution that virtually eliminates the possibility of faking tests, even in facilities where they are unobserved. This is called Tox Protect, a DNA-verified drug test and lab service that provides 100% sample authenticity. Tox Protect was created by Genetox Labs, can be used in place of any standard urine drug test. It starts with simple one-time cheek swab to establish the patient's identity. Once submitted, each subsequent screening uses DNA testing to verify that that sample matches the patient. And additionally, Tox Protect screens for synthetic urine and irregular values that would indicate dilution or other adulteration. In other words, this pretty much guarantees accountability. I'm excited to see this service being used, and I think it will significantly improve an addict's chances for successful recovery. I'm going to be talking more about Genetox Labs and Tox Protect on future shows. Thankfully, Tox Protect is being used by more and more facilities every day. Be sure to ask for it by name wherever you or your loved one is receiving care. To get more information or share it with your facilities, go to drdrew.com/ToxProtect. That is drdrew.com/ToxProtect.
I'm on the air. I got an emergency text from my rehab. Bob, I need to talk to you immediately, ASAP. It's important. I can wait 20 minutes.
Oh, boy.
Someone might die. It's fine.
No. You can't, when you own a rehab, you can't live in fear that somebody's going to die there or you'll never sleep.
You know what? If you don't have a crew that can handle it, if you don't have employees, then you don't have the right
faith in your
people.
employees.
Right.
That's another way that I know Amy is from Rehab World.
Well, so
because she was married to a rehab owner, a friend of mine, an acquaintance of mine, and that's where we really became close. And she knows the underbelly of the rehab world.
I'm actually writing a piece for The Fix about patient brokering now. It's so brutal.
That's just one. That's just the most.
What's going on is so disgusting.
But that's just the most disgusting, obvious piece of the mess, right? There's so many layers.
Oh,
to
I
it.
know.
It's
No,
like,
believe me, I've talked to people.
Google making more money off the death of addicts is the most
Well,
disgusting.
I'm going to talk to your boy Chuck, too.
Yeah. So Google makes billions, not millions, billions of dollars off the manipulation of Google searches for healthcare.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They make the most money.
It makes me so sad.
They make the rehabs look like petty Annie things.
Didn't even think about that. You're right.
Right?
The word junkie before the break.
Okay, so
My Fair Junkie is the book.
So My
Buy
Fair
the
Junkie
book
is
everywhere.
What did the politically correct crowd suggest you call it?
Well, okay.
My Fair Drug Addict?
My Fair Substance Use Disorder.
Yes, exactly. So my publishers were great with it. My agent was great with it. They were like,
It's a
because
great
if it bleeds,
title.
it leads. I've written editorial. People grabbed the book because it said junkie. So then, after it came out,
Did they have to be explained, My Fair Lady? Did they have to be explained that, millennials? I think they do.
Here's the deal.
They don't know what My Fair Lady is.
It's a transformation story. It's a Pygmalion story.
Oh, they absolutely would not know Pygmalion either. But let me just say that I firmly believe that all this bullshit focus on nomenclature amplifies stigma.
Thank you.
Thank you. The strongest opinion that way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
because it's all the codependent do-gooders that are. It's not drug addicts that are doing this.
No, there are There are recovery advocacy groups who are saying
recovery advocates.
Yeah, and they're saying you should say substance use disorder. Junkie is stigmatizing.
Who are these people?
They're people that
I guarantee they're either on replacement or do-goody codependents.
I would say most of them aren't sober, but they work in recovery. A lot of them.
I don't know.
Because they don't really
I just-
understand drug addiction.
Okay,
What group is it? I'm looking them up. What's it called?
Recovery advocates.
Is that the name of a
No,
group?
I'll give it to you after. I don't want to name names. And
It's that group.
Yeah, it's a group.
That's a bunch of codependents.
Oh, is that what you're saying it is?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, it's
So
not.
you
It was a
shouldn't-
couple. I got it from a couple different. I got pushback from a couple different areas. I got it on Instagram. I got it from one recovery advocacy group, and I got it from a group in Canada. And
Canada is a whole different can of worms.
So I just wrote a piece, and I was just like,
let's reclaim.
That's exactly-
Let's reclaim the drug addict's privilege at using words to describe.
You don't
their
get to
stinking
tell
disease.
me how to tell my
Yes,
story,
exactly.
and it's like for me to. I don't know anyone in recovery who says I have substance use disorder.
No,
not
of
one
course
person.
not.
And I interviewed an addictionologist and a psychiatrist who's also sober, who used to run rehabs, and he said even at my height of my drinking and drug use, I did not fit the criteria for substance use disorder. He goes, that is for.
That's for research.
Yeah, that's for research. That's for charging the
for
insurance
insurances,
companies.
that's right.
All that kind of stuff. And he goes,
Yes.
and that's not going to break the stigma. People are going to go, oh, well, Steve has substance use disorder.
Breaking
it's
the
like, I don't
stigma-
give a shit. He still owes me $200 and stole my car.
What breaks the stigma is being honest about the
I
condition and joke and making
Yes,
not
making
making
jokes.
light, not making light, but looking at the humor within.
Yes, and showing that you can recover, breaking the stigma of recovery, breaking the stigma of addiction.
Right.
And it was like, that's what I said. And I was like, owning it has made me feel free.
Those people really need to be set back on their heels. I'm sorry, but they do.
And it's like, and don't tell me how to tell my story. Are you out of your mind?
Well,
But you know what? They said, oh, well, it's using some highfalutin word like substance use disorder, like SUD is not going to, like,
I
AIDS,
just laugh at
AIDS
it.
had a highfalutin scientific name for a long time, right?
well, here's how.
Autoimmune deficiency disorder. Guess what broke the stigma for AIDS? What broke the stigma for AIDS?
What?
Magic Johnson talking about
Magic
it.
Johnson talking about
And
it.
that it was no longer a death sentence.
Right.
And AIDS rides and AIDS stigma and all of that other stuff.
People just talking
Right.
about it.
Yes.
But
And
let me
joking
tell you-
about
and
it, too.
people getting hope
Yep.
and people
But
saying,
you
"Oh my
gotta,
God, death
you gotta
sentence."
appreciate how people are coming into this field, Drew. They're coming in for their do-gooder codependency, right? They're
Yeah.
licensed social workers, licensed marriage and family therapists, IDs. Most of them nowadays are not sober people.
Mm-hmm.
They are people who want to help or want to get involved in the helping field, right? And so I just pick the ones that I think know what's up, and I educate them simply on that because they're teaching that term the last 5 years in school.
Oh,
Just
now
so
even
you-
APA, if
Yeah.
like for articles, you have to say person with addiction or person,
Yeah,
and
okay.
I'm like, oh,
So
God,
listen
you
to
can't
this.
say addict.
So
You
this
can't
is
say
what I
da-da-da.
say. I say, okay, if the people in our facility have substance use disorder, that suggests that there are some people who
Orderly
can use
use.
methamphetamine or heroin orderly.
And
That's just-
not only that,
Dave from Dopey
and I
Nation
say,
said that
have
you said that that's orderly use.
Have you ever? He stole that from me. Have you ever met anybody that's used methamphetamine orderly and
Not
correctly?
only that,
and
that.
you should see the look on a smart
I
licensed social worker's like. They realize they've been lied to for 2.5 years in school.
What do you have to say? Because I would have
Drew?
thought you would.
yes, not only that, they what drug addict when you were in your disease, did you care about with nomenclature? Think
No.
about it. Did that determine whether you embrace sobriety or not? It has zero to do with freaking anything.
Yes.
Zero.
Yeah.
Think about it.
if anything-
Except one thing. I'll tell you one thing.
Political correctness.
I'll tell you one thing. When we all shared a language, it was a way to connect and joke. And to have a gallows humor about you're being a hey man, junkie, you junkie.
Right.
Come on, who are you talking to? You junkie.
Like he was going to steal my book, and you were like, "Don't, you're a junkie. Don't steal the book."
right.
Yeah, but now there's all this splintering among all the things. It's like let's all just.
But
we're
I
all
think
going
it's
for the
truly
same thing.
because there's a lot of people both in and out of that are hovering around the recovery racket, right? Who are both sober or not sober, who I don't think have the disease of addiction.
I agree with you.
Right? So it's now been, this is part of my thing about the 12-step world, Drew.
Yeah.
You got people in there that are definitely not alcoholics, acting like they're in charge of it. And whenever you challenge them, you're the devil. You're this bad person. You're the one who thinks too much or questions too much. So I just stopped fighting like 8
Who
or
would
10
go to
years
rehab
ago.
unless they were an alcoholic?
there's lots of people. They have emotional issues. They have no place to live. I
Really?
mean, there's a lot of people. I know you would never go.
Jesus.
Look at the look on her face. She would never go, no matter what. And then she can't imagine
it's
there
like
are people that go.
it's like 5-star chefs because some of them are really nice, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, Bob,
are.
Bob, I'm in 12-step, and it's
Me
like
too.
okay, that's the other
Me
thing. I
too.
totally blow 11 tradition, and I know someone who wouldn't blur my book because it blew 11 tradition,
Yeah,
and
I
I
know
was
that.
just like,
right?
Yeah.
and I
this
just
is the
said,
group.
Don't tread.
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
They do not know what they're talking about.
I know. What was I talking about? Oh, 11 tradition. 11 tradition. Okay, that's in the 30s. Okay, now
Yeah.
we have intervention. We have celebrity rehab. We have
Sure do.
South Park doing stuff about AA. We have it's in Love, Judd Apatow show. It's everywhere.
You are
it's
sentenced
like,
to
and it's
AA
like
in the
yeah,
courts.
but it's like we know about it. If you say you're in recovery, people assume you're in a 12-step. So like how I think
is it
that,
secretive?
Yeah, being weirdly secretive about it and not talking about it is again adding to that creepy stigma about recovery that it's not okay to be in recovery. Recovery was the hardest thing I ever did over and over and over again. And it's like, I'm proud of it. And it's like, you know what? I wrote about AA in the book, and I wrote about some of the sexual predatory creepy behavior that happens in the rooms, and I wrote about really honestly stuff. And some girl said to me, "You seem cool, and you made AA not seem like a weird Christian cult. I want to meet you at a meeting."
Ooh, that's good.
And I said, "Okay." And she met me at a meeting, and she's fucking sober now.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no, I'm
That's
with you. Listen, I understand. That's
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Getting
11
rid of the
tradition,
label.
that's fucking outdated. That was the 30s.
Well,
It's
you should know that
2000.
Bob and I did a whole study in that 11th tradition before we did Celebrity
It's
Rehab.
not the world we live in anymore.
She-
A
it-
lot-
I
it
agree,
was
but
Bill
but
W's
people get really bent
It was
about
Bill
it.
W.'s wife that pushed it. Remember all that stuff? We
she
looked
wrote
into?
she wrote a book called well, there's a lot of history to the 11th tradition. When my belief is that AA is now not just a self-help support network, it is a religion.
Oh,
And there are
dude,
people
don't do
within
that.
it. There are people within it that treat
Okay.
it like religion.
I agree, Bob.
Unquestionable authority.
Bob, I agree
When
with
I
that.
was on the
Oh, God, here we go.
So
Avoid
here we
those
go.
meetings.
Here we go. I was on General Services when they were doing the new edition of the book, right? The LA chapter in Olympic on Wilshire when they had the offices there. And I just suggested that the LA chapter suggests to General Services that To the Wives be removed from the big book Alcoholics Anonymous because it is misogynist, is outdated, and it no longer is useful.
Right.
You should have seen the religious blowback
Yeah, but
against that suggestion
Yeah.
that you touch their text
I
that
know.
Moses gave from down
Bob,
on the
you're
mountain.
acting like I don't go to meetings. You're acting like I don't know. You're
So-
talking, Bob. But you know what? You can pick and choose. There are some good tools there. It's really cognitive behavioral therapy.
listen,
It's cognitive behavioral therapy.
Regardless
That's
of
it.
all that, it's still the only game in town. It's the only thing that works.
No, but it's cognitive
But
behavioral therapy. Throw out all the religious crap. Throw out our
Well,
creator.
actually,
throw out all
I
that
think
stuff.
that- I
I'm
think
not
it's-
saying you guys misinterpreted what I'm saying by religion. I wasn't comparing it to
there-
religion.
look, there's a
it was
religious
how
intensity. It's-
people view it.
The religious
that
intensity
it's
around it.
unquestionable authority.
I agree with you.
And they make up the things that they say are
I agree with you.
unquestionable, like the 11th tradition
Right.
or To the Wives.
But I would argue that one of the reasons is that the religious stuff around it is it's always
religious
been a
fervor,
feeling.
not religion.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And remember what we used to come up against with
Psychiatry
Yeah,
has
with psychiatry
it.
stuff. Yeah, and so people have bizarre,
Dogmatic beliefs.
bizarrely, almost like they're talking about a religion or something. The way they talk.
Well, there's also the tribalism that comes into
there's
the
all
whole
kinds
thing.
of weird
Yeah.
stuff around it. And my thing is like, hey, everybody, this
Yeah.
is just something that's worked. It's worked the way it is.
Right.
It's worked for a lot of people. It's free.
Yeah.
For Christ's sake, it's free.
Right.
And you talk about saving healthcare dollars, and
Right.
let's just put it in the lineup here with the things we're doing. You're right. It is fundamentally a piece of it is cognitive behavioral therapy.
Correct.
Another piece is attachment. You're sitting with your
Correct.
sponsor. Another piece is trauma management.
Yes.
Fourth and fifth step. So there's all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff that
If you take it apart, it's really-
And
it's-
John
yeah.
Kelly wrote some publications on this where he showed that it works just like all the other treatments we use. It works the same way, magically. An empiric model, it works just
Right.
the way other empiric models work. And it's it's not
but
professionally
it's free and it's not professional.
free. It's not professionally managed. There's some downside,
Right.
But
there's crazies in charge of
that's right.
whatever, so it's
But
like,
it is something that needs to be put in the lineup for sure in terms of the things we use to treat addiction. It's
Right.
free. Free. And the big thing, you know what the big things about recovery is you don't have enough people around to sit on addicts. They're not professional to sit on the addict day in and day out the way they need. The way they need.
Yeah.
Particularly early in recovery. You have to sit on that person.
Yeah.
And only a person who was sat upon themselves is motivated to do that to keep themselves sober and to help others.
True.
And there are not enough professionals on earth to do that, let alone enough money
That
to
is
do
true.
it. It's like, the second inaugural, all the bondsmen and all the lashes and all the whatever of the land will be run dry just trying to keep one addict sober when there's this free service out there. You said something about the Dopey Boys?
Dopey Nation.
Dopey
Yeah, Dave
Nation.
from Dopey Nation.
No,
No, he gave you credit, Bob.
I was
Calm
strangely-
down.
Okay.
He gave you
I was
credit.
strangely
Calm down.
worrying about him today. I don't know. I had a
Aw,
weird.
Dave? Really?
I was thinking about Chris. Chris, the other guy, right?
Yeah,
Chris
Chris
is
the guy
dead.
that died.
I was thinking about Chris a lot today for some reason.
well,
And I asked you. That's why I asked you about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes.
Well, Chris is dead.
I understand
know.
Chris is dead.
Maybe you were conjuring up his spirit. He kept
It's
shutting down the
hard.
computer.
Yeah, maybe we should try to get Chris on your podcast.
Yeah, he could probably go.
No, it's
But-
terrible.
Too soon.
But Dave, he was so connected to Chris.
I know.
Right? And it's becoming more and more. There's, we'll see how the next 6 months goes. That's how I always think. But we talked to him. I talked to him. You talked to him.
Yeah, I talked to him.
The Milwaukee guys talked to him.
Yeah.
He's staying close. He tells you if he's having a good day or a bad day.
No, I love him.
Dave?
So it's like,
Yeah.
No, he's a good guy.
no, he's sweet.
We're going to go
He
see him
texts
at
me every
Cats.
other day.
What?
And I love
Cats?
I mean,
yeah.
Dopey Nation. Half of their listeners are still high. So he's told me that. So he's like, tell us your worst stories,
Hey, those are the
Amy.
people we want to get at, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like, tell us your stories. Don't lecture. Like, tell us your stories. Tell us your most horrible stories. I'm like, okay, I met my drug dealer at Cedar Sinai when I was having an outpatient procedure, and I did lines in the cancer bathroom, and I felt so bad. It was like there was a
cancer
sign
patient.
over the toilet. It was like flush twice if you're having chemo, and I didn't have cancer. And I'm like, people are fighting for their lives, Amy, and you're doing lines of blow in the
Let
cancer
me ask you
bathroom.
something. Did you really feel bad in the
Yeah.
moment or in retrospect?
No,
thinking
I
about
felt
it?
bad at the moment. I felt like
Okay.
you're a piece of shit, Amy.
Just
like
hurry
you
up.
really.
Just don't take too long.
And then you thought, fuck that.
Yeah, I was just like, whatever, guys, And then that was the other thing. When I one of the treatments I did was I went down to Tijuana and I had amino acids pumped into my arm. Right?
You know about
so they were
this,
supposed
too?
to. You know of this?
NAD?
$10,000. It's $10,000.
Oh, the old EMS. Now
This was the HIT center.
Well, now
This
we
was
have
the HIT
NAD.
center.
That actually works.
Really?
Yeah, it does.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Well, this
Yeah,
did not work, and I'm there. And I was like, it was the ideal thing for a drug addict. I'm like, I get to sit in my sweatpants on my phone while someone fixes my brain and I don't have addiction. I'm like, this is wonderful, right? And other people are there for like MS and cancer. They're like, what are you
No,
here
that was a
for?
scam.
I'm like, cocaine abuse. And I was just like, I felt such a
You don't
dick.
remember that? They were doing it back when we were.
Yeah, they were doing it.
Do you know-
You know who I love pointing out? So, one of the greatest musicians in the world who died tragically, Elliott Smith, right?
Oh, God,
so he had been
right?
to several treatments, and it was very
needle
sad.
in the hay. Oh,
and
brutal.
He got that treatment, the amino acids, from that famous doctor at the Peninsula Hotel in Beverly Hills, who who I'm talking about.
God almighty.
And it was a new gimmick, the amino acids. And then Elliot had an upswing in his mood, right? He wasn't suicidal, right? Which he had before when he got sober. You have a pink cloud. You're
Yeah.
glad
I've
you're not
never had a
strung
pig
out.
anything. Look at me.
Yeah.
No.
But you know what I'm saying. He was in a good groove, but the doctor convinced him it was because of amino acids. So he started being the face of amino acid treatments,
Of course.
and did interviews talking about this miracle treatment for addiction and depression.
Oh boy.
And then a couple of years later, we know what happened. Of
course.
Very.
Do you know what has really changed my mood and my sobriety
What is?
and I wrote a piece about for the Fix is about low dopamine toning. You'll know about this, about the genetic mutation for some addicts.
The D2 receptor.
So we can't make L-methylfolate.
Well,
properly.
that's and your D2 receptors are different. So there's a lot of different things.
Yeah,
Listen, the genetics around alcoholism and addiction are very complex.
Yes.
If you see a single explanation, be very
Okay,
skeptical.
but it was you could test for this one I think it's called like the motherfucker mutation. Sorry, but that's what the short.
It looks like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
It
started
does.
taking
The medical
it
thing
literally
looks like that?
motherfucker.
yeah, and it's like it is if you don't have that. So it's like for people like us, you can't make L-methylfolate as easily from folic acid and folate like from greens. And so you've got a low dopamine tone and blah blah. So I started.
They're extrapolating to that, but the folate issue is for real.
I started taking L-methylfolate. Bam.
Helped you.
I feel normal.
Oh, did you get measured for the gene?
No, come on! I was shooting stuff in my arms. Some Mexican guy spit out on a corner. You think I'm going to get?
Oh no, I thought you meant later.
Gene? I was just like, let's roll the dice here.
Yeah, and it worked.
Let's see if it works.
And it worked amazingly.
And what? I
think that we need to really look into that.
Oh, listen, this is the thing about addiction. This is the legitimate sort of criticism of addiction treatment is that by using 12-step facilitated therapies, we're always accused of one size fits all.
Right.
And to some extent, that's true.
Right.
When in reality, what we should be using is an array,
absolutely,
and that we skillfully either try or know how to apply to a specific patient. Suboxone, as I've discussed, for some people may be right.
Right.
The folic acid may be right for some people.
But I still needed CBD to not be a total asshole also. Do you know what I mean? Like I needed also the connection. I needed to know how to behave. I needed to do contrary action, all of that.
The cognitive behavioral therapy, the CBT. You said CBD.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Freudian
slip.
But to be
No,
fair,
that didn't work on my apples.
But to be fair, CBD may be something we end up using in our.
What was your thing about
cannabinoids?
It doesn't even make.
No. You and Sharp were talking about it. The low dose, like low dose LSD, but the low dose.
I don't know. I talk about a lot of things because I'm looking for stuff that helps.
The thing that he wants to have the drips of.
Oh, ketamine.
Ketamine.
That's for mood. That's for mood stuff.
That's for what?
For mood.
How
that's
low
for
a
depression.
dose?
Oh
really
no,
low.
it's 5 heavy infusions. 5 in anesthesia. Heavy.
I
You're
just
kidding.
Yeah. Oh no.
Oh, I thought. What about the low dose microdose?
That's
what do they call
LSD.
that?
It's microdosing LSD.
Oh,
that's treating PTSD, I think, more than mood, and that we don't know the long term effects of that. Ketamine's been pretty well studied now, but be that as it may, I'm not sure it's good for addicts, though. Obviously, for obvious reasons. But the point is the one size fit all criticism is just. However, I do think that 12-step should always be a piece of what we're using.
I agree with you.
And the rest is the other thing. Integrate.
And the other thing is center. Here's the question:
at the center and making recovery possible.
What's
should
the
be the doctor's
first question
job.
an addict asks within the first 72 hours of being in a treatment center? Are you sober? It is the most important ingredient in helping another alcoholic to achieve sobriety. All the rest needs to build around that.
Yeah.
Right? Meaning nutrition and hippy-dippy, should I call it, and CBT. And yes, the psychiatric community has some component of it, but what they tried to do is just replace us.
Right.
And get the sober people out of it. And now it's all
you
going to be
can't treat it like
psychiatry.
complete mental illness. I mean, I've been on every medication.
Right.
It's
Everything
like,
became medical.
No.
Everything became about Vivitrol. Everything became
I'm talking
about
about the
CBT.
heart and
Everything-
soul of treatment centers moved away from the fact is what I have that you want is I know how to live sober.
Well, yeah.
Right?
We still
that
need
doesn't
that.
exist in so many rehabs.
Oh,
you
I
know
that. I know that. But, you're asking me what on your podcast how I had this shift and how can we create this shift.
I
so I
hear
was
it all the
sweeping
time.
the streets. I'm on a chain gang, right? Sweeping the streets on a chain gang, and no one will talk to me. I'm a Beverly Hills princess. So when I showed up there, I was like, oh my God, like these are criminals. And what am I doing here? And it was like, turned out I had more time than anyone else. I was the only one there for violent assault. And it was like an awakening.
Dresner for not having insurance and they got a car accident.
It was just,
they got a DUI.
Yeah.
She's like,
yeah, it was really humbling.
She tried to kill her husband with the heel of her shoe.
And it was like, no one talked to us except for like homeless drunk people. We're like, good morning, stay out of the pen, that kind of stuff, wherein other people were kind of like,
out of the pen. Amy was being told to stay out of the pen by homeless people on Hollywood Boulevard. That's where it brought water.
Normal people were like, oh, because we had a clean team outfit on and all this stuff at room. And so, it was like a couple people, dumb people would be like, I love the environmentalism you're doing. How do I become part of this?
Are you filming a reality show or something? Is that what's happening?
But I had a moment where I was sweeping the streets and I just thought, wait a second. I'm in my early 40s, right? And I've been in 6 treatment centers. And I've tried to kill myself 3 times. Wow. And I've been in 4 psych wards, 5150'd. And I've had numerous relapses. And I had been sort of a trust fund baby, married to a rich guy, left with nothing. And I'm in sober living and I'm sweeping the streets. And I just went, wait a second. This can be the best thing that ever happened to me. Or this can be the worst thing that ever happened to me. And it's my decision. And I thought, this is the result of all your decisions, Amy, your consequences, your character. You're not a victim here. Could this be the best thing that ever happened to you? And if so, how? And I thought, well, yeah, like I can learn to sweep and I can really learn like have a work ethic and I can get humble and blah, 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 blah. And I embraced it. And I also found the fun because I was like, you have 30 days of this, honey, so you better find what's fun in this.
So it's a moment of clarity, right? And there's a small little pamphlet called The Enchiridion by Epictetus where he suggests that kind of philosophy as a way of dealing healthily with life.
It made a shift, and I've never gone back.
Get her a copy of The Enchiridion. I think you get it for like nothing. You guys, we got to wrap it up.
All right. Well, that was beautiful. Fun. See, you're a recovery advocate, not a stand-up comedian.
I'm both.
Oh, there you go. She's both.
But we need to do a little campaign against the powers that be that are undermining the culture of people with their disease, owning their disease.
That's how you break the shame.
Correct. The codependents are appropriating. They're culturally appropriating your disease.
Yeah.
Don't let it happen.
I know. All right. All right, you guys. See you next time.
All right, that's about it for this episode of This Life. Check us out at KBC, being Lawrence Savon, 790 Midday Live Talk Radio, Monday to Friday. You can also tune in every day live via the magic of the internet at kbc.com. If you miss it, we've made it simple for you to find all the shows at drdrew.com, the Adam and Dr. Drew podcast, the Sing What I Do By Myself, the Dr. Drew podcast, This Life, of course, with Bob, Swole Patrol, Mike Catherwood, his new health and fitness podcast. You can find us on Twitter at This Life Podcast, at Dr. Drew, Derry W, at Rehab Bob Forrest, and of course, our lovely producer at First Lady of Love. I think I know who that is. If you love this show, please subscribe and tell a friend. We appreciate it when you do. We'd love to hear your feedback as well. Send us a message. Join the email list at drdraw.com/contact. You'll also get a weekly email from us on that. While you're at it, at dr.com, please support our sponsors by clicking through the banners. We only advertise products that I can get behind. So thank you for supporting them, those that support us. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.